Hey everybody, Dave Lindbergh in Hong Kong with another episode of the THD Podcast. Our website is now up, so you can go and check out all the old episodes of the THD Podcast. And today we have a guest from Norway originally coming in. And so we're going to talk about ear hooks and how you keep earbuds and these little devices safely in your ear. So without further wait, as always, we have our co-host, Simon Weston, calling in from Japan. How are you doing today, Simon?
Fantastic today. Thanks, Dave.
All right. And so our special guest today is Bob Lyle, the U.S. Rep for Freebit, and also Nico Declunder, the APAC Business Development and Sales Rep based in Japan somewhere. Right. So we've got two.
On the islands.
On the islands, yeah. He's in the probably the surfing area or something, isn't it?
That's right.
That's right.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay, so Freebit, as I know it, they've made some waves in terms of they've got these little hooks that have been included in some of the projects I've worked on. Brands such as Jaybird, I believe, were using those hooks, and a lot of brands using them. And it's really a lot to do with getting a great fit. A lot of these in-ear devices, acoustically and everything that spills from having a good fit. So Bob or Nico, who wants to take it away and kind of give an introduction to the company and where it started?
I'll let you both go.
Sure, I'll maybe take a stab at that, and Nico, you jump in if I miss some things. But Freebit's been around for quite some time, and most people wouldn't be familiar with them directly, but everyone knows of the products that they contribute to, at least in North America and Europe, and maybe in some parts of Asia. If you go into a headphone store in an airport or in a shopping mall or something, sometimes half the products there, Freebit will have contributed to those in some fashion, to the design of the overall product, and in particular to the wing or retention structure or fin, however they're held in the ear more comfortably. Especially nowadays, comfort is quite important because of the fact we've moved to true wireless devices. So now everyone's kind of demanding to have true wireless, one ear, both ears, et cetera, all day or for exercise, et cetera. And so comfort's an important factor. So Freebit's been around over 10 years and contributed to Monster, Jawbone, Jaybird, you've mentioned it, products from Amazon, a bunch of others, Motorola, a bunch of brand names, products that you see in the stores, and provides good overall comfort, fit, stability. And that helps to have better sound quality as well. If you've got a reliable, stable fit and good comfort, you're going to have better sound quality, because you need a reproducible position in the ear to kind of keep up with noise cancellation. And a lot of the new devices are, of course, have ANC or active noise cancellation for better sound quality. So that's some of the background. The expertise of the company is on human ear ergonomics and comfort, not so much on audio electronics. So we work with partners that do know audio, know how to build speakers and other parts of the audio design chain. But our expertise is on human ear ergonomics and how to provide a secure, comfortable fit, something that could last all day, which is the goal, of the headphone OEMs to move to that trend.
Okay. So, is there a lot of work with material science as well beyond the ergonomics of the ear? Maybe there's a presentation you can go through to kind of illustrate some of these things.
Sure, I can jump into a presentation to explain some of the important factors and the trade-offs involved in the design of the headphone products. There is some work on the material selection. A lot of that's done by the different partners in the industry. So there is a lot of work on hydrophobic compounds and materials and coatings to keep sweat resistance, or things that are of medical grade so they don't degrade or cause harm to the skin, cause rash or something like that. Freebit themselves don't do a lot on the material science per se, but obviously since we work with over 100 different licensees, those companies, the ODMs and OEMs, they're doing a lot of work on different materials that are medically good, to be against the skin all day, as well as good for resisting sweat or moisture type thing. So I can kind of skip through some of this material if that's helpful. It's a Scandinavian company based out of Oslo, so kind of builds good Scandinavian design principles. Invented an original ear interface that was around over 10 years ago, with like the Monster first original stereo Bluetooth and wired products that were in here for Monster, Jawbone, and Jaybird were some of the early licensees. Harman is a large licensee, and a lot of these products, if you look closely, you can see a logo from Freebit on the box, or in the fine print, some mention of the fact that they have the Freebit ear interface.
Was it largely a timing issue, like in terms of like the mechanical design and the patents that you were able to capture? I mean, it must have been just the right idea at the right time before everything went to being, secured in the ear. I mean, I kind of remember the Sony behind the ear clips. That's probably 15, 20 years ago. But being the in-ear hooks, that must have been just a kind of combination of luck and timing to get that happen.
No, a very, very good point. It was a bit of a combination of both, the right timing and a bit of good fortune or luck. And actually, to get into some details, is Freebit initially tried to make a mono Bluetooth headset. So actually made a physical product and used their human ear ergonomic capabilities to make a comfortable product. It wasn't the most beautiful mono Bluetooth headset in the world, and was kind of larger back in the day. And then they decided their skill was in the human ear anatomy and making things comfortable and secure. So they figured they would stop making their own direct products and just focus on working with others. They have a lot of IP around the design and have a database of human ears globally that helps them to make a secure, comfortable fit. The claim to fame they have is that if they work with an OEM or ODM, an audio brand, that working ideally from the beginning, you can have a device that has around 95% comfortable, secure fit for a global audience. So it would fit people in Asia, North America, Europe, et cetera, that are of different sizes and statures and everything. And even some OEMs may choose to build product localized to a region. So want that to be either larger if it's Northern Europe, or maybe smaller if it's in Asia, depending on people's sizes. So yes, some of it was timing that, back then everything was over ear headphones, and that was transition or just tiny little, plugs in the ear. Then it transitioned to more comfortable kind of active sport devices. And that's where Freebit initially was known as people that could help with the sport and fitness type devices, because they could help with the stability and comfort for those. And now with the trend, it's even better with the trend to the true wireless devices. The intent of the audio brands is that people wear those all day long. You get up in the morning, you walk out to your car. If you were going to work in a non-COVID time, you're driving to work or on a public transport, you've got the thing in all day. You're in the office, one of them's in or both of them are in. You're either listening to music or listening to a conference call. It'll tell you when to go to a meeting. It'll give you directions on how to go home. So the intent of the audio brands is that you have the thing in for 8 hours or more. And so you need that all day comfort, of course. Of relevance, I'll maybe mention, there's a slide on it later, but Qualcomm does a study the last few years on the state of play. And I don't know if you've seen that, but it's one of the most exhaustive studies I've seen. So that's a public document that people can look for, the Qualcomm state of play report. But in that, the last few years, they sample 5,000 or 6,000 people globally from 5 or 6 different countries. So it's the most exhaustive report I've seen. In that, they rank, the top criteria for people to buy true wireless products, and they also have the top criteria for people to not make a purchase decision. So interestingly, top 3, I think every year they've done the report was, sound quality, price, and comfort as important factors. So comfort in the top 3 all the time. But interestingly, the number one reason people do not buy a device or barrier to purchase was the device not being comfortable. So obviously just some additional data points from an exhaustive study on how important comfort is to a headphone. You might think it's price and sound is most important, but you can see that people rate the comfort to be high on the list. So.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we can put that link in the description below. So I'll get that from you.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll look for that as we go. And then, so this was just a sampling. I mentioned there's a lot of different partners that Freebit has worked with over the years. But on average, if you go into a kind of a traditional store in at least North American and European markets, and I think in some Asian markets as well, quite a few of the products would be Freebit licensees where we contribute to the design. And you can see how in the lower left there, they used to be kind of a larger, maybe not the most pleasant looking, but a large C shape or curved, kind of fang. But that fits quite comfortably in the ear and is quite secure and stable. And there's different takes on that, different ridges or design language in those structures. And over time, that's morphed to the true wireless devices on the right that have what we're calling a C skirt. So kind of floats in the ear more and sets the device in more comfortably. And what you want to try to avoid is not having a single pressure point or a single point that's holding the device in the ear. Like when you shove kind of the older style earbuds, like what you would have had on a Walkman or something. When you shove those into your ear, the whole pressure point is deep in the ear canal. Now you want the structure to rest in the ear with no one single place with all the pressure on it.
Yeah, who could forget those classic yellow Sony Sports Walkmans? Maybe
Yes.
we're dating ourselves here.
Yeah, and after that, the Discman. So,
Yeah.
And so here you can see for headphones, as everyone knows, there's a lot of design trade-offs for the people that are making these headphones. So a lot of times a headphone brand will choose, whether it's a Harman or JBL, AKG, or Monster, Bose, etc. They'll choose one design use for the product. It's for work, or it's for leisure at home, or it's for relaxation. It's for playing, so going to the gym. The ultimate headset is one that could be used for all, to commute on the train, could be used for going to the gym, etc. And so is adaptable. And so obviously that makes the trade-offs harder, because to do all these things, it's going to have secure, stable fit, as well as long battery life to last all day.
Yeah, I know that I can echo that with dealing with brands like Beats. They found that their studio wireless headphones, people would use those at the gym as well. They had their sports version, but people they're going to spend $200 or so on a pair of headphones. Most people don't have the budget to buy a special set just for the gym and a special set for whatever else they do. So that's,
Right.
I've seen that in the market.
Or even remember to carry them around and that type of thing. So some of the basics of the interface, and not to get into too many technical details, but the idea is just to make earbuds more secure and comfortable, and maintain and improve sound performance and noise cancellation performance. And it turns out that with noise cancellation, you've got to have a repeatable location in the ear. So you don't want the device moving around, because that's going to adjust the sound quality and the bass, and how the sound cavity is structured. So you want to keep it in the same space. Our focus as a company is on all-day comfort, and that matches up perfect with the whole trend to go to true wireless devices that people wear all day. So that this design, the kind of the wing or C skirt design that we have, the point of it is that we need something that can adapt to different ears, whether they're kind of the median ear, even though there is no such thing as a perfect golden ear or the standard ear. Interestingly, not to digress too much, but the ear is so unique that it's the same as a human fingerprint. So just literally the same as the fact that there is no fingerprint that is identical. There is no human ear that is identical. And so there's been a lot of different research from different people on this fact. There was even one kind of a silly like crime detective show where they tracked down a criminal because they had a headshot of the person, just like a side headshot, and they tracked him down and were able to arrest the criminal based on the fact they did an ear match, kind of similar to a fingerprint match. So anyways, all the ears are unique, and they can vary in larger widths or narrow ears, etc. The idea of our design is that it can kind of flex and vary within that space. And what we've done as a company is come up with, if no one has an idea of their own and doesn't have any preconceived notion, we have a bunch of different reference designs. So people don't have to use these, but if an OEM or ODM or actually just a person wants to start a headphone company and they've got no starting point, we do have 3D CAD of these different reference designs that people could start from. We've given them different catchy names or code names, Orbit, Pill, Bean, and Mini. Those each have different trade-offs as far as the size of the device, the diameter, which then dictates how large the battery could be and other functionality. Like if you wanted to put in a heart rate monitor or other sensors into the device, then we could do that as well. So any questions or thoughts on these?
No,
I have a
get
few. What we can go into now is I just have some kind of cool artist renditions of what they could look like. And again, we would expect that if someone wanted, they would give this their own design, look and feel, make it more sporty, or could make it more masculine or more feminine. They could tailor it toward youth or for adults, etc. So here's just kind of a standard, black professional look. Each of these have different sizes I mentioned. So the Orbit is the larger device. I think we actually recommend the largest a device could be is around 18.5 millimeter diameter. There are devices that ship on the market. There's a device that we contributed to, the Under Armour, The Rock Edition device, which is a pretty cool looking for workout gym, associated with The Rock himself. So that device is actually larger than the primary design criteria we have, but it's a great device. I like that one myself for working out, but it is larger and in smaller ears that may be difficult to fit. But that's a design choice they make with, we're going for the sport large look with a large battery. On this device, this is 17.5 millimeters in our standard reference design. Uses the anti-helix part of the ear to provide a secure and comfortable fit. So the kind of the curvature on the back of the ear. And you can have this both in ear, which is meaning with the little mushroom cap on it, kind of pushed into the ear, or a hybrid device where you may not have the mushroom cap, or a slightly different device where there's a lot of open air in there. So some people prefer not to have an occluded feel with the mushroom cap shoved into their ear, so it can be more open and resting in there. It causes more ambient noise to come in, but actually for some sports, bicycling or other things, you actually want some ambient noise to come in anyways for that. So the pill was one of the other reference design shapes, smaller in size, 13 millimeter diameter. So here, obviously the trade-off would be you've got a much smaller battery in this size, but then a smaller look and feel, less weight, and may look more attractive than the larger device shown previously. Another one is to take a battery approach that's similar, and for lack of any better terminology, and since everyone would probably say it, to the Apple AirPods, which kind of came out first with that design of having the battery extend down. And probably a lot of people that copied that design don't like referring to that, but obviously they dominate the market for the true wireless devices. So that placement of battery like that actually lines up well with the notch in the concha for placing a device. Another structure is the bean, which was smaller still, so 13 millimeter diameter, so slightly smaller than the pill shown previously. And then another take on that, again with a different battery design, was the mini, still 13 millimeter diameter. I thought we had one here. You can see in the picture on the right how the wing attachment would fit on this device. Again, that wing can have different looks, have different cuts in it, or jagged edge or softer edge, etc. We would advise and would work with partners on the shorterometer or the softness or hardness of that plastic or rubber. The material selection is usually done by the headphone brands, but we may say needs to be shorterometer 20 or 45 or 60 if you want it softer or harder. Sometimes if it's more sporty, you'll need it firmer. If it's meant as a device you're sitting around the house listening to music or sitting at your desk, it can be softer and a little more flexible because you're not going to be jogging and jarring the device out. In general, we would recommend 3 different sizes, small, medium, large. And that's where, if it's designed right with small, medium, large, you should be able to get to 95%, of the population with a good fit. Some manufacturers don't like so many pieces. And I admit that sometimes when you open the box of a certain headphone, it can be sometimes overwhelming with like a billion ear tips and wings and things. Obviously you can go to 2 sizes, small and large, but then you might only fit 85% of the population comfortably. But that could be a trade-off you make, especially if it's a regional device, for European sales or Asian sales, et cetera, then you can maybe focus in on the traditional sizes or the average sizes of people in that region. There's another take on the mini design. And that, so the mini design is the next one, which is even smaller. So 10 millimeter diameter, so even smaller battery in this device. So here you're not going to have the opportunity for biometrics and heart rate monitor and things like that because you just lost the space. But for simple music and a smaller battery, this can work. So maybe I'll show a couple of devices that are just to promote a few devices that are on the market now that use this design, our latest design. So in the past, we had the C shape I'd shown you, kind of the large curved wing or fin. Now our devices have a newer technology that we came out with about a year ago and showcased at CES in 2020 for the first time. So these are just 3 different devices from 3 different manufacturers, and there are more on the way now. But Let's Fit, drop safe device. This is actually branded on their website and on box that we contributed to design. So that's actually have one of those here, but quite incredibly lightweight and comfortable and kind of floats, in the ear. You place it in there, and it's not pushed back against the floor of the concha, but just kind of floating there with some air gap. Then the Audio Technica, I think, is for sale now in Japan, if I remember correctly, Nico.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And then the Soul Electronics S-Fit device with a nice wing that's quite similar to what we have in our reference design. And we actually, for people that are interested, we have reference design kits where we can send out one or two of those 4 variations of reference designs with all the wings, small, medium, large, so people can play around with those. And just to give you a side view of what I was talking about on our architecture, this is our newer design where we have IP around this design, but just shows how different than the original. So remember 10 years ago when people had wired in-ear headsets or even stereo Bluetooth first headsets, those were the C shape that rested against the floor of the concha and curved around the whole anti-helix and kind of held in place. That was comfortable, but this new design is even more comfortable because it's, distributing the pressure along the concha, floating away from the back of the ear. So this provides good all-day comfort. Also provides a repeatable seal for noise canceling devices, etc. So that's kind of an overview on our technology. And our ideal goal is to work with partners iteratively with, here's our 3D CAD of a reference design, and you could go to market with it, or we can tweak it in your, colors, look and feel, etc. Or a manufacturer can come to us with, they've already designed something, just don't know how to make it comfortable. And we can take that 3D CAD, provide suggestions and optimize that. And then we would add a suggested wing to it in various sizes and work with them on how that should be done. And we would provide recommendations on, you can leave the device as is, adding a wing, and it'll fit, X% of population, or you can tweak it a bit to, fit even more of the population and have a better, secure all-day comfort.
So you don't sell parts, it's just a license arrangement?
Correct. Yeah. So Freebit sells. In the past, as I mentioned, we did dabble in making a mono Bluetooth headset a long time ago, and we did dabble in making adapters or attachments to AirPods, to the original AirPods, and then I think to AirPods Pro briefly. But we no longer do that because to some extent we were a bit competing with our customers by making. So we make no physical product ourselves. We just work with our partners, OEMs or ODMs, and then we only receive monies if they're successful when they ship. So we get a license fee or a royalty on the back end when they ship product. So it's obviously in our best interest to work well with partners and design a good product. Otherwise, we get nothing out of it.
What's the sort of core element of the patents? What is it that you're licensing? Could you describe that?
No, good question. So we have IPs specifically around the kind of C shape and C skirt structures and on the end ear interface employing those technologies. And so we have new IP that's only of this last year on the C skirt technology. And then we have quite a bit of earlier IP on the C shape technology, which was more than 10 years ago that IP was filed. Actually, you kind of mentioning the right timing, David. It was back in like 2006 or something. We were filing IP on the original C shape structure and then used that IP for a long time. And just more recently, in the last couple of years, filed a bunch of new IP on the C skirt technology. So our IP has nothing to do with the electronics or kind of overall structure, the entire earbud, more on just the ear interface itself and how that meets up to the ear.
And how much of a battle is it dealing with people who are using the design without the license?
That's a good question. There are some people that use the technology or the IP without a license. We have had quite good success more recently working with partners like Amazon and others to point out that there are people that are infringing the IP, and they have been helpful in many cases in shutting down listings of or advertisements for people that are selling, because Amazon and sites like Amazon are the primary sale channel for a lot of these smaller OEMs or ODMs. And so, they've been quite good at shutting down companies that are infringing IP.
Yep. And how much is the license?
That's a good question. In general, it's under NDA. We disclose detailed pricing, but to give you an idea, it's in the cents to a buck range per unit for the license of the devices. And obviously, if you jumping into your mind might be that if a headphone is $10 or $20 or $30 retail, then that's a pretty steep ad. If a headset's $100, $200, et cetera, it's not as big a deal. Keep in mind though that we do a lot of design services and iterative design work with companies, and in general, for most partners, we don't charge at all for any of that work. So with a lot of partners, we may work iterating CAD back and forth 2, 3, 4, 5 times over the course of days, weeks, or months, sometimes even years. And for many partners, for more reasonable fashion, we don't get any payment for that. So we do that on a complimentary basis to recoup the monies on the back end. So we hope they design a good product.
So if I want to implement this in a technology, we come along, contact you guys, sign an NDA, and then what happens?
Then we actually have it's a very good question. If I can stop sharing just for a second and stall, I have a project flow. Let me just pull that up real quick. So
I'm angling towards this thing where someone comes along with an ID. I've got an existing ID and I want to add on a Freebit retention mechanism, and you say, no, it's not going to happen because your ID is totally off. You have a lot of that sort of difficulty, I guess.
No, that's a good question. I don't know, Nico, if you might have on hand that iterative design process slide.
I may have it. Give me a second.
I'll try to find it, but yes, a lot of people. I would say our request is that people show up to us and have a clean slate, and we design a product together from a clean slate. But more often, people will show up and be done with the design and realize it's very uncomfortable and doesn't stay in your ear and falls out, and then they'll say, "Fix it." So we do our best to correct that.
I do have the document, Bob. Just hold on a second.
Okay. Yeah, sorry guys, I should have had that pulled up, but so we have an iterative design process, and as Nico will post a slide, we kind of share the design responsibilities of here's what we suggest the OEM or ODM does, or even if it's a one-man shop, designing his first new headphone, here's what we would expect this person to do, and then here's what we would do. Type thing.
So it'd be a combination of some where the outside housing has this feature molded into it, and some of it would be a silicone piece that you slip onto the earbuds?
Yes, if they're thinking ahead to needing a retention mechanism, we would usually always need some type of slot or retention thing to keep the wing in the same position, because you can't have it rotate. A lot of ones that are designed poorly, there's no retention mechanism to keep the wing from rotating, in which case the thing wobbles around all over when people put them in. So you need a groove to hold it, and you need usually a notch to kind of set it in place. And then we would design the plastics to do that. And it could be a variety of ways, like a wing that slides on, or something that encapsulates the whole back end of it.
Some of the examples you showed, it looked as though they were overmolded onto a plastic part.
Yes, and some of them do that for their own design look or more secure feel. It does add some thickness to the overall device, so that's kind of a trade-off they have to make. So
yeah, I'm sorry, for some reason the pipe just can't open it, so I'll have to wait. One thing I wanted to emphasize while we discuss this approach is Freebit was originally well known to design that this shape for sports earphones. So we had a lot of success with the brands and product that Bob have shown on the presentation. For the C skirts or new technologies, a new interface, we try to have a more diverse orientations that looks at premium TWS as well as gaming. The reason why we also have a lot of traction with gaming, for instance, is because that interface, the C-skirts that use a whole concha wall, can carry weight, more weight, and still stay secure in your ears. So when you look at, gaming earphones with a boom microphones, that makes a lot of sense to be able to use that whole concha wall to carry the weight of the boom microphone. So, we have seen sport fitness, but there's a lot more uses than just that with a new interface.
So it could be like a counterbalance. You said a boom even?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
like a counterbalance. Yeah, that's great.
Interesting. Yeah, I know the theme of people coming to you to solve their problems after they've already tooled is a classic. It must be a nightmare in terms of, hey, please help us. We're,
And sometimes we can, sometimes we just can't, right? We have to try to be there as early as possible in the design stage. And it has been happening in the past that we just came too late and we could not resolve the challenges. So of course it's easier if we start from the very beginning, or at least in the middle, not toward the end of the development.
Yeah, and I suppose with the number of products through the gate, you have a very good ability to determine what the solution that will be depending on the problem that works. But I guess also like the data originally to collect all the different types of ears, is there like a particular source that was used, or was this field research? And how did you come up with all the ear types to base the original patents from?
Thank you, Nico. I was just about to find that as well, so thank you for grabbing that. Related to your question on the database, it was a long time ago in the beginning of Freebit, they did do a global study, so had some number of participants in North America, Europe, Asia. From that, built a database of kind of normal traditional ear sizes, et cetera, designed initial products for the mono Bluetooth headsets, et cetera. Over the years, that's been fine-tuned and augmented with many different user studies with different OEMs. So, we've got over 100 different licensees and many different major brands. So a lot of those brands, we've been involved as a participant in large user studies, where they hire an outside agency to do an anonymous or random study of a group of people at a gym or shopping mall, et cetera, in different environments. So we've benefited from being involved in those studies. Unfortunately, the data from all of those is confidential to each of those OEMs and ODMs, so we can't really disclose that. But basically, we have a huge empirical and factual database built up so that we can take a design, plug it in, and roughly say, this is about how well that'll work, and here's where we suggest you could optimize it. It's good that you asked the question, though, as we are working as a company to release the second half of this year an actual usable database that others could use, and even come to maybe use that database even if they don't want our help necessarily per se to design a headset. So a company could just approach us and say, we know what we're doing on the headset. We'd like to just validate if this is going to fit 70% of people or 95%. And so we are planning to have a licensable, usable database. We are now augmenting, our earlier knowledge with new 3D ear scans from Europe, North America, and Asia. And the plan is to build a usable 3D database where I'm simplifying things greatly, but you sketch a headset at your house, you pop it into the database, and it comes back with this will fit 72% of people with the right attachments. So that is a new development we're working on, because many companies have asked for that. And I'm like, you give us everything's confidential to us. We don't have anything shareable, but we are working to correct that. So back to the.
No, I was just going to say, that was just thinking, because that's the simulation of what design will fit what market they're going after, save a lot of pain for both you guys and them in the long run.
Right. So this here, and thank you, Nico, for pulling this up. This is the normal. I mean, we can modify this, but when people sometimes ask, like, what do we do? Who's doing what in the project? We normally we suggest this split process. So we rely on, the customer or working with us to design the inner housing, and then we'll break things up to where we're doing 2A, the upper path. So we design the interface to match comfort, fit, stability required for that market. So are they going after, people in North America at the gym, or are they going after global, all day use? Or maybe it's more for in office and in home, video conferencing and music listening. So there won't be a lot of running and jogging, that type of thing. So we'll design the ear interface and the outer housing, containing the battery and the rest of the device. The customer does that with their industrial design team, and we can help contribute to that, but they're responsible for that part of the design. So, and if we move to the next slide, I think it shows, so now you see how those pieces kind of come together. And so we would help recommend ear tips. A lot of the customers design the ear tips on their own, but our engineers can also help design ear tips that would be optimized to go with the structure they have and the angle of the ear canal and things like that. We would provide recommendations on that inner housing part, on the length, angle, position, thickness of the ear canal part to fit optimally in the ear. We would be wholly responsible for the C skirt. So we would 100% do the 3D CAD models of small, medium, large wings, provide those to the partner. And as we mentioned, we don't make anything, but we would ask them to make, to a certain design, and that would mate well with the inner housing and then the outer housing that they've designed. And again, we don't do any of the outer housing, but for some partners, they have actually, even though it's not our normal business model, have paid us NRE to do that, contribute to giving them back the whole 3D CAD of the outer housing as well. As I mentioned, though, normally we don't charge any NRE costs. We're just charging a royalty on the back end when they ship. But if they want us to do, other things, we can do that as well.
Okay.
And then if you continue on to the next slide, just shows kind of the project flow. And I was going to, some of them we took the weeks off because people like to hold us to them. But in general, this is a time frame of literally you could walk in tomorrow, Simon, you start your own new headphone company, and in 9 weeks we're shipping product. But that's with a great success on one time through the iteration. Obviously, as I mentioned, with some it's been more than a year or two, but that usually involves pretty extensive design and new components and biometrics or other things that might be in a device. But in general, customer will come in and we'll look at design and engineering, ergonomics, any legal issues, et cetera. Then we'll work with them on the definition of the product, come up with a design brief, and then it's an iterative process of, maybe we'll exchange CAD files once or twice, but with some people it's been 5, 6, 7 times as you tweak different things. Sometimes we'll stop in the middle as it points there and do a focus group. So people will do 3D printing. We will at Freebit, and we have a group of power users that we use to test products. So these are people that are educated in headphones. They test lots of different products and their different sizes. So we'll do a focus group at Freebit headquarters or other locations, and then the OEM or ODM will do their own kind of in-house group. Problem is, a lot of times you can't do these publicly because you don't want to disclose your brand new product. At least if you're a big brand, you don't want people to catch wind of your new headset product coming out. Anyways, we'll do focus groups or user studies, and then finally close the product and ship. So that's kind of the traditional partnering design process.
Okay.
I'm just thinking in terms of the proposition, might be a bit more of Dave's area, but so starting a new earbuds project, and what you would end up with is, let's say, choose a midpoint of 50 cents, let's say, and you're going to do 10, 20K pieces. So it's going to cost you, say, 5 to 10 grand in terms of license fee down the track, but as a benefit of that, you actually get excellent fitting earbud instead of total rubbish. So it sounds like quite a good deal to me, actually.
Yeah, because a lot of people will complain about the price. Even a penny increase in the BOM cost would be something noteworthy or measurable. But the downside is potentially having an uncomfortable device, which Qualcomm did the exhaustive study. Number one reason someone's not buying it is it's not comfortable. over the sound quality and over the price was the things not comfortable. And in the top 3 reasons that people do like something is that it is comfortable along with, sound quality and price, et cetera. I think battery life was 4th out of a long list of criteria there.
Just thinking in terms
yes, it is in their best interest that it's comfortable.
If you went out and hired a industrial designer or somebody to go through the process of making a good fit, you could blow through 20, 30 grand easily. And why not just get somebody who's already got the answer?
And you raise a good point, is that many people initially, David, you mentioned about the timing, is a lot of people might wonder, why would a real brand, a famous brand like a Sony or a Monster or some brand, everyone knows they're an audio brand and they do good audio. The interesting thing was, it's changed a bit now, but at one point, none of those brands had, human ear ergonomics expertise. They didn't have anybody sitting around who did human ear anatomy, human ear ergonomics. Now, some did, so that isn't a blanket statement of every headphone maker, but many of them could make the most incredible, speaker, driver, battery combination that's roughly the size that could go in your ear, but it would literally be the most uncomfortable thing you've ever seen, and maybe ugly. And so then they would call on us, so we would be that extra ergonomic expert, kind of outsourced, ergonomic expert. So you're right that the amount they would be paying us in royalties was probably less than them hiring a few people to do that. Obviously, other people over the years, I think Apple and others have built up big teams of people now that do, human ear ergonomic studies and invest in that. But initially, a lot of the famed audio brands didn't have any expertise there, so there is a need for Freebit to provide that assistance.
One more thing we can say on that point is not only the brand itself, but even ODMs. Like, you will be surprised that those big manufacturers, or small or medium, they usually have very good acoustic team, engineering team, RF team, electronic engineering team, but ergonomics usually is quite difficult to find, like some people that will be specialized in ergonomics with the ODMs. So not only brands could be a weak point on that, but the manufacturers as well. So, Freebit can cover both that aspect, from the brand and the ODMs.
Okay, interesting.
Fantastic.
Is there any action in like audiology or industrial commercial comm devices, that like military and all this kind of space?
There is overlap to, a few things we should mention is there is overlap to the hearing aid industry and the technologies used in that. And actually, at some point, a little ways in the future, hearing aids will be similar to like the best, high-end true wireless devices, because they are kind of a true wireless device now. And they obviously have to have all-day comfort. So there's some overlap to that. There is overlap to military specialty technologies. And I have, over the years, talked to a couple of companies that specialize in headsets for the military. So obviously those have to go to super high spec of like heat resistance and reliability and battery life and things like that. So there are applications for that. Another application we haven't touched on per se, but Nico, I think, has a lot of background in this, is gaming. So today, technology wise, the hardcore gamer needs a wired headset with, instantaneous response time and no time delay. But the true wireless technologies are getting better and better. So now the technology is there to where, to the casual gamer, just playing games on his, tablet or phone, they can use true wireless devices. Now, still today, I think the super hardcore gamer needs better response time. But I think in the future, you'll have gaming as an application, even at the high end, where you can use a true wireless device to do high-end gaming. So it covers a lot of different applications.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. So these gaming is not my world, but just learning about that they can't use wireless because they might miss the click is kind of it's a whole other world out there. But interesting.
Yeah, an expert was telling me it might be something like 16 millisecond latency, but the current status is what they need at a high-end gamer, which that doesn't mean much to myself because I am not a gamer. But I think the current technology in the best true wireless devices might be 40 or 50 or 60 milliseconds. So it's getting better and getting close. The average casual gamer doesn't have any idea there's a problem, but the guy in the first-person shooter game that's going for the world title, he needs even better response time. So
Yeah, no, and so I guess the theme here is like comfort is it's pretty close to being king on the feature sets, and that's the interesting thing. A lot of people, I'm sure, they overlook this concept in their development. They think about how it looks and how it sounds, but how it feels and how comfortable it is, it's a different thing. So there must be a lot of work interaction with materials. I kind of touched on that at the beginning, but I would like to come back to that, like in terms of like the memory foams and stuff like that. Is there cooperation in like, okay, you're going to use a memory foam nib and then this C-skirt and how it all fits together is kind of like an open-ended question, but any comments on that?
Quite a few of the, I mean, there's one manufacturer, Comply out of the States has a lot of IP on the foams used. So I think they have a lot of technology and patents around that. And we are, I guess, complementary or synergistic to them, that a lot of the headphone brands, boutique headphone brands or others, or even established larger brands would sometimes ship Comply foams as an additional option. So memory foams as an additional option to the product, and allow the consumer to choose. Some will even ship with regular silicone ear tips and then Comply or generic memory foam ear tips as well. And so that's a choice up to the OEMs or ODMs, depending on the application. If it's for fitness, then it might have more use for that type of ear foam. So that's another consideration. But you raised again another good point, is our big thing we stress is just involve the consideration for comfort early. Like should be day one. A lot of times it's when they're near done, we're asked to kind of save the day, and that's fine as well. But ideally you try to consider comfort in the beginning stages of designing the product.
Yeah, definitely. You make, in product development, you often make a checklist. And one of the things I do on the manufacturing side over here is make the list of what would cause people to return this product. Why are we going to get it back? And so we don't want it back coming back to Hong Kong. So how do we stop that? And this is obviously a great factor related to that. Okay. Yeah. Simon, do you have any more questions?
That's it from me.
All right. Well, let me once again pop up your website so people can see it. Here we go. So here's the Freebit website. People can go there, check out what's going on, and also we'll put the contact information for Bob and Nico in the description below. When everybody has any questions, you can jot them down there. We look forward to that. And of course, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. It helps the algorithm. So Bob in the US and Nico in Japan, thank you guys for joining us today. And hope everybody enjoys this content. And we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.